So today we have Manas, CEO of Veritus. This is a part of our AI founder stories by DataInsta. And Manas, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here, Abu. Great to be here.
Manas, can you give us like a brief introduction about yourself? You have a great background from academia to switch it to industry to VCs. You've been everywhere. Can you tell us a brief story about yourself?
So, my name is Manas. I'm the co founder and CEO of Veritus. At Veritus, what we do is we make professors, researchers, head of labs, research students vastly more productive. We focus on simplifying and streamlining research workflows that are manual and repetitive because two papers are published every minute, and we come in and we simplify different processes that researchers have so that they can focus on innovation. Our philosophy is to augment their abilities, not to replace or take away innovation or new thinking from them. So we are enablers, not replacers. And we're a Japanese company, Kabushiki Kaisha, based out of Kobe, Hyogo, and we're part of Jetro programs where I met Abu in AI Salon, hosted by Ilya and
Mm.
Blitzscaling Academy. We met first, and one thing led to another, and I'm here now. Thank you for having me again, Abu.
I think when you mentioned like when you were like in the intro, you said every 2 minutes there is one paper. Like I'm like, man, like when I was doing my PhD, like probably every 2 years, like so
Yeah,
I was probably like the worst researcher. Every 2 minutes. That's interesting. And Manas, like I
yeah.
think you left academia. Like I think you published papers. Like what made you leave academia? Like we all have different stories. How about yours?
The thing is, I haven't left academia. I still work because
Oh,
research, I find it very interesting. Yeah, so I'm still visiting assistant professor at Osaka University in the Yamaguchi lab. Yeah, so I'm still there. We're still working on disaster prevention and sort of counterfactual analysis, some machine learning stuff, interesting things. Um, the reason I was a full time assistant professor over there, and the reason I left was because of my own experience. My PhD started 2 months before COVID, and it was supposed to be on lidars, uh, deep tech
for
lidar
cars.
stuff. Yeah, but unfortunately, because of COVID, everything was shut down, labs were shut down, and we had to like literally change my PhD topic after the department's approval overnight. So my supervisor was very supportive. He was like, Manas, cannot do it because if the labs are shut down for the next 1 or 2 years, you have no access to the equipment, and maybe we have to figure out something else. The next 2 weeks, uh, remotely on Zoom, we figured out something else, and I had to pivot. And then we came about, they decided to work on cellular networks, and we found collaborators in Chicago University, and they had data, and it was something new. I had never done or studied cellular networks in my life before. No courses, nothing. It was not something that my lab specialized in. Uh, but we just decided to pivot and do that. So the next 6 months after that was quite difficult. I had to read like maybe 1,000 papers, right from first G GPRS to 4G, 5G, and the future of cellular networks, understand everything before I could get into it. So it was quite difficult. And during a pandemic, even more difficult. So but thankfully, with my professor support, collaborators support, I was able to finish my PhD before time in 2 years instead of three. Despite the 6 month setback, we published a bunch of papers, did great work, released data for everyone's like benefit of the community as well. And I was able to do that because I had a certain process. Because I come from industry before that, so I applied the same methodical process of doing literature reviews, reading papers, summarizing, synthesizing, hypothesis formulation. And this was all pre-GPT. So this was mostly manual with some basic NLP stuff, like prototypes that I had built. And once, so it was not something I could scale. But AI came about, and I figured everyone around me during the pandemic was sort of struggling. Their PhDs were not finishing on time, scholarships were getting ended, people had to do part-time jobs, peer reviews were stuck for like months and years. So I figured, what if I take this manual process and use AI and optimize it at scale? And that's how the idea of Veritas came about. Yeah.
I think the problem, like you trying to solve, like many people trying to solve it in different ways, and some, like for example, like beside like finding the literature or what kind of the next idea to work on, or like just going through like thousands of papers. I remember like when I was doing my PhD, the biggest fear I had, if you are working on something and somebody in different country working on it and you publish on the same thing, I think also it's probably we can touch on that. So briefly, like if you can tell me like the
Yeah.
main problem, like you probably talking to professors, to researchers, what do they think like other problems like beside me and you know already regarding this?
I think the found at a foundational level in the past 2 or 3 years, the biggest problem that they face is in keeping up with the rate of publications. The rate of new information that
Mm.
happens is like in tremendous at this point. Uh, like I get this notification of papers published on cellular networks, counterfactual machine learning every day. It's like every day there's 3 to 5 papers that are being published specifically on my topics, and it's you don't have five like the time to read 5 papers a day because these are complex things. So I think that's happening, and information is happening at a very fast scale. AI has made it possible because, which is a good thing because it's democratized writing. Earlier, I think there was some
Mhm.
disadvantage to non-native researchers because we would take 4 to 12 to 16 weeks to write a manuscript, whereas a native researcher at the same skill or competence level can write that manuscript in 1 week. So we had that disadvantage. Most of the feedback that you get in reviews is also your language is like improve the language. So AI has helped with that,
Yeah.
but the downside is now there is so much publishing happening that it's just difficult to keep up.
That's for sure. I think that's problem. Like, I think I a couple months ago also I posted about the reviewing. I think also like part of your feature. I remember like for me sometimes like it's been a while like, but I get for example requests from like editors like, can you review this paper? Can you? And for me like yeah, like reviewers. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of them like because they make money and they want people like to review it for free and they charge
Yeah.
people in journals. I'm talking about like and that's like and since you mentioned already like the number of papers published like probably 10x already, and with that number also reviewing is going to be also like more challenging also. Like do you think like your products Veritas is just going to serve like professors, or also like do you think like these kind of journals editors like will or can use it, or at least what do you think of this?
First thing we built, like many of the other tools in the market, was a research assistant tool. So we built a PDF,
Mm,
how to read and understand a paper quickly, summarization, Q&A. That was the first product. And then we had good early adoption. We had like 300, even at the alpha stage, we had 300 users coming in 3 to 4 times a week, and it was pretty good. But then Google released Notebook LM, and at that point, it
yeah.
seemed to me that one, this is going to be a very crowded space because this is the hello world of AI applications. Take a PDF and do Q&A on it. So we got out of that very quickly. Yeah. Second, we also, after talking to professors and researchers, we learned that it was not adding value as much because research happens in workflows.
Mhm.
When we read a paper, we read it for something. Uh, no one ever just downloads a paper and is like, yes,
Yeah,
I'm going to read this paper today because it's Sunday, right? So they are either doing a literature review or they
just
are
fun. Yeah.
reading a paper to add to that manuscript, or they're like fine tuning their hypothesis, or looking for a specific method or a process to test or benchmark their results. So how do you take this specific process and plug it in the entire research workflow? That's the problem we grappled with for the longest time. And the first use case that we found was peer review, because everyone in the team is a researcher. We have PhDs, we have professors. All of our papers got stuck for months, years sometimes, and we were like, can we solve this? So we built a peer review tool, and once we built it, it was in the like it was pretty nice and good, worked very well. And we reached out to publishers and editors, both on the business side and academic side. So on the academic side, the editors would like, we would love this thing if it can help screen papers and help our reviewers with the review process. That will be great. Uh, and some of them even tried it. We have, I think, almost 200 formal peer reviews done on the 170, 180 done on the app now. And but on the business side, there was a lot of pushback because the thing that you mentioned earlier in our informal chat is like publishers get free community based peer reviews done. They get free editorial services from
Yeah.
editors. So from their point of view, even if they're making like I think 30 to 40% margins, profit margins every year in a 20-30 billion dollar industry, they do not want to pay
Yeah.
for these reviews. It's like, yeah. So
This is the
they
greed.
said no. We reached. I cannot name names, but we reached out. Yeah, yeah. So because it's a status thing, it's a credibility thing. It's also an ethics thing. If they allow this, then
Mm.
everyone just uses AI. So then the human, we tend to conserve energy. Everyone would conserve energy by not applying themselves. Perhaps that's a concern as well.
Which is just the hardest part, like for you, like as a founder, building the tech, or like for example, iterating the product, or like gaining the trust.
There are multiple segments in this space. There are the early adopters who do want to try PDF readers and search tools. So you'll find them very easily because anything that's 5 times or 10 times better than Google Scholar is sticky. It's like you use it. However, I do not. It's my belief that these are not the. That's not where the core problem lies in innovation. It lies at the level of
Mhm.
like leaders, whether it's a leader in the lab or a supervisor, because they do not have enough time to mentor and guide their students, and that's who we are focusing on. And with them, adoption is a problem because trust and credibility is very important. A student would be okay trying a hallucinating app, but a leader of a lab who has to write grant proposals and review papers, for them, the margin of error is zero. So what we did is that we aimed small and missed small. We looked at 5 specific labs. We partnered up with them, two in Japan, and we worked with them for almost 20-25 weeks now. And we built applications, solutions alongside them. They were very supportive. Every week, they would come on a 1 hour call, give us feedback, walk us through their process, their collaborators' processes, and we would encode that like as a software. So on an average, we do these 15 to 20 calls with our customers or pilot trial customers, and that's how we build the trust. That's how we got to that very little margin of error. We met that, and now I'm very happy to share that some of these labs are going to be our first customers starting this week.
There is like features where it's needed, and you mentioned already about workflows for me, like as a ultimate, for example, AI, let's say AI agent or AI scientist, it'll be like, okay, if I just give it one prompt, what's the next big idea I should work on? I don't need, for example, to read on all these papers or like. And what do you think of this? Is that like, for example, you already kind of putting it into as a feature, or?
Let's just say a peer review workflow or finding new papers or new direction for your research. Uh, Fundamentally, the foundational technology that powers them would be the same. The processes, however, are different because the end goal of doing them is different. One is an exploratory process. You're looking for new papers or new science to synthesize, uh, analyze, and distill it down to 5 attack vectors or 5 directions that you might take as a researcher. In a peer review, it's more of a synthesis analysis, but a critical evaluation with the end goal of decision making. So, two different processes with the same, I would say, functional steps. In both, you would search for papers. In both, you would analyze the manuscript, synthesize, summarize. But what you do at the end of that step with these 4 foundational blocks is very different. Similarly, when you're doing a literature review, the same process. You search for papers, you do some meta analysis, then you pick out 10, 20 papers, you analyze and read, synthesize, summarize, distill it down to something. But the objective is to put it together and say a Prisma sort of a guideline or a literature review for your paper. So end to end, I think 70 to 80% of the processes are the same. It's like a Lego block. But how do you put together the thing to make the final uh, thing is different.
Speaking of, for example, the peer reviewing, I think I've seen in your website, like it's already 170 or 200 like peer reviews already. Like, so who is like actually peer reviewing this one? I think you mentioned also like from the industry, there was some pushback.
When I say industry, I mean the people on the business side of, and also perhaps ethics side, some editorial uh, positions are not in favor. Things are changing, definitely, but it would be a year, 1.5 years before the Overton window on this AI based peer review or AI assisted peer review is okay. In the meantime, what we have done is we have opened this tool along with literature review and the grant workflow tool for everyone who joins our platform. So if they do a review, sometimes they review their own manuscripts before they're submitting. So that's one use case. We have that.
Mm.
Professors review their students' manuscript as a supervisor to give them feedback. That's another use case. And actually, the 170 plus is just what people have selected that this is a peer review. Otherwise, we have like over 2 or 3 thousand done at this point. So it would
Oh.
be, yeah. So that's only what we know is like an actual formal peer review.
And speaking of like the competition, like with this kind of a space, I've seen like I think just today, as mentioned earlier, like
Mhm.
Future House or like it's like some of them they call it AI agent for this, AI agent for that, like and some, for example, help with writing. Do you see Veritus like, for example, within the next 2 years, like where you kind of have a full suite of features, or you want to just focus on one strong core feature you want to have?
For our ICP, one specific feature, so we do not look at it from a feature perspective, we look at it from a workflow perspective. Which workflows are jamming up our ICP the most? Where can we deliver the most value for them? And we build those. So, for example, we have built the review workflow so that a supervisor or head of a lab can give prompt feedback to their students within a day rather than a week or 2 weeks because that delay compounds. If a professor or a supervisor takes 2 weeks to give feedback to the student, the improvements then come back 4 weeks later, the submission gets delayed 3 months perhaps. In each cycle, the delay compounds. So how can we shorten that? Similarly, literature reviews. If an early stage researcher, master's or a PhD student, or even a professor, if they can get top 30 papers on their topic within a minute and a deep systematic review done in 8 to 10 minutes, that gets them on the 80% Pareto principle yard line, right? You start off with 80% done. And then, of course, the next 20% comes in from expertise and years of experience and hard work. But to get that 80% done gives you a strong advantage. So we have identified these two workflows. And the third workflow would be research grant application because I think money is very important to keep a lab running. So these are the three things that we're focusing on this year.
So Manas, just one more last question before we have a fire chat round. Like what advice you give it to PhDs or academic people who want to maybe like, I don't know, start a startup like you and me, like what advice you give them, like who want to switch career?
I would say, so it's my own personal experience, and it also comes with a certain age demographic. So I am 35 plus, and I have certain responsibilities. As risk taking as I am, uh, so I have certain parameters which encouraged me to do a certain sort of business and start a certain kind of company, and that was I built something or pursued something that I had deep understanding of. research or marketing. No, sorry, instead of marketing or sales products, I'm building something for researchers because I have experienced the pain points, and so it helps me understand the customer empathetically and build a solution around their needs easily. So that's one that perhaps if you're in the same age demographic, build on your experience. Uh, it helps you leverage that. Second is grit. Grit and persistence combined are very important. There's going to be a lot of hardship. For example, you're a foreign founder in Japan. Japan's been great. We get a lot of opportunities, definitely. It's also hard in some ways, and most countries are, I think. Being a founder is hard. So grit is very important. You would hear a thousand no's. Just the other day, Tyson Bertino, scaling in Japan podcast, he mentioned that I reached out to him to be a co-founder 2.5 years ago, and in that process, I met over maybe 150 people to find one co-founder. So like that process, like hearing
Oh,
so many no's, yeah, it like a thousand no's before I assembled my team. So you have to have that grit, you have to have that persistence, and the third thing would be humility. It's like it's okay. You make mistake, accept it, learn from it, move on. Uh, Someone's not being nice, it's all right. Like there is no hard feelings. And like maybe they don't understand your product, and I have made mistakes there. Sometimes you're like passionate about your thing, but over time I've learned to be like humble about it. It's okay if someone doesn't get what you're doing or they don't agree with your hypothesis. That's fine. So that's a lesson for me as well.
absolutely. Like I've been there. Like I agree with every point, and I think it's just I think it's just part of the process. Like you gotta get hammered, and I think the rejection is just honestly the more like I don't know. I have that mentality. If anybody rejects me, like I'm fired up. I want to just prove them
Yeah,
wrong. That's to
yeah,
me it motivates me honestly. Anybody who's saying no to me, I'm like bring it on. Like I'm gonna show you. Like
yeah.
I think that's the spirit you should always everybody should have, honestly. So like Manas, just
Yeah.
like for a fire chat, like like questions, like you just
Mhm.
like can answer like with one word or two, or even like one sentence, like quick. Like, what is in one word?
Okay.
What's the future of AI, especially for science?
It's a great assistant.
Do you think we can like have more discoveries or like solve hard science-ish questions, cancer, for example?
Absolutely. 10 to 100x faster with AI. Yes.
That's interesting. Second question: what's your favorite AI tool? Not yours, of course.
That would be GPT deep research.
Awesome. So the next question, like, what's the problem you wish could be solved with AI?
One thing, um, language barriers and information silos. So two problems. You can communicate, tools that can translate, and there are coming out, tools are coming out, but if the communication, I think is key. That helps solve all problems in the world. You can communicate with the other person, you can read and understand other science, fiction, anything.
Manas, like for the last question, what's like something you wish you knew before starting Veritas?
One thing that as an academic, uh, I would say understanding the people better. That's something because we are so much focused on research, and even though I worked in venture capital for a year, uh, the first few months trying to understand people, and my biggest takeaway was if you focus on the work, if you focus on the project, people get managed and people are driven automatically. So, yeah, if I were to do it from the start, I would try it off the bat, um, drive motivation and inspiration through the work.
Awesome, Manas. Thank you so much. And like for guys like who is watching here, like please check Veritas, give it a try. Especially if you are a researcher. I think I have like thousands of researchers, PhDs, professor on my like on my profile. I will share it on LinkedIn. I will share it on YouTube. Please check them out. And Manas, any last words like before we wrap up this?
Yeah. So, Abu, thank you so much for having me here today. And it was lovely talking to you because you're a fellow academic and a fellow founder. A lot of intersection between our life stories and journeys, and both of us are in Japan making incredible things, pushing boundaries. So, it was a great conversation. And for your audience, please try Veritas. Abu will share a link, so that would be his personalized link. So please share it with your professors, researchers in your network. Check it out. Try. I'll see you all in Veritas, and let's do
Awesome.
better research and better science. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Manas.